All right. It is almost 10 o'clock. Did everyone get an indication that we are recording this?
Yes.
Good. It's always nice when tech is working. All right. Okay, so good morning, everyone. This is the 10 o'clock session from the Unmanned Safety Institute. We are excited to have Scott here with us. My name is Carrie Hunter. I am a career tech planning district consultant in Southwest Ohio around the Dayton area. So I support 6 counties in the area with career tech. What's great about today is we are recording this. It'll be posted on the website. We'll also have the handouts. If anything gets updated, we'll add that as well. Anything else that's relevant that we find out, we will also add. Feel free to share this with anyone. So a little bit about Scott here. He is what is known as an energetic leader within the aviation industry. He earned his BS in aviation management from the Ohio State University and went on to work within the industry. His roles included multiple roles for NetJets, and as a founding member of the management team, he served the company for over 16 years. Staying in the aviation industry, he founded and was CEO of Air Chef, which was later rebranded as Air Culinaire, and then moved to Argus International in 2009 and was instrumental in growing the company. When Argus acquired the Unmanned Safety Institute, he stepped in and became the executive director. So, without further ado, I'm going to stop sharing. Now you have complete power, hopefully.
Complete power, that's dangerous. So
I know, don't tell anybody, right?
that's right.
It sounds good.
Let's see. I'm going to share this. All right. Carrie, please tell me my presentation came up.
It is, and you just got to put it in your presentation view. That's it.
From the beginning. Look at that. You can teach old dogs new tricks. Oh, there.
Now,
There we go. Is it showing?
let's see here. No, we are seeing, looks like your Teams folder or something. See here. Okay.
Now, do you see the presentation?
We do. We see the slides and everything. You just got to start your show, it looks like.
So that would just be this, right? From the beginning?
Should, yes.
Let's try it again.
Oh. There you go.
You do have it now?
Yes, looks great.
Okay, wow. Well, good. Thank you, Carrie. I don't want to step on your toes. You're all done?
I am done. Go for
Okay.
it.
Well, good morning, everybody. Happy New Year. I hope it's a great 2024 for everybody. Again, my name is Scott Liston with the Unmanned Safety Institute, and we're talking about drones and arts and communications today. So, thank you for joining. I'm not really sure what prompted you to be here, but I'm super excited that you are. So thank you for that. So just real quickly, here's kind of how the presentation is going to flow. We've got a quick introduction. We're going to go into kind of what's happening in the industry out there. And then we're going to get more specific about, again, how do you find a job? How do you get to work? How do you make money out of these things? So that's where the industry credentials come in. Excuse me. And then we're going to talk about teacher certification and training, because I'll tell you what, this is such an exciting time, but there is a very limited workforce out there to take all of these many jobs out there. So this is something that has to start in the classroom, and that has to start with getting the teachers certified and trained up to be able to properly bring this into the classroom. And then how do you maximize value there? So that's kind of what we're going to talk about. I'm not going to spend much time on this slide. Again, that the chubby bald guy in the corner is me. The picture in the background, though, I think is cool. That is the drone, aka helicopter, called Ingenuity, on the planet Mars. So yeah, we are flying drones. That the Ingenuity has completed 70 missions remotely operated. That's what a drone is. It's a remotely operated aircraft, and that aircraft is being operated from Houston. And it's done that successfully 70 times, which is pretty amazing stuff. So we are really expanding the envelope with what we can do with drones nowadays. But I'm an OSU graduate. I'm a very, very proud Ohio, and I'm coming to you from my office in Galena, so in the central Ohio. I've been here since 1966, and very proud of my state. And I'm going to get back to that later in the presentation because I hope there's nobody from our surrounding states on this call, because I make no bones about the fact that I really want Ohio to be the leader in all things autonomous aviation technology. And I think we've got a great opportunity to do that in Ohio. But 2024 marks my 40th year of working in the aviation industry. I was very lucky to be a part of the founding management team at NetJets back in the mid 80s. NetJets is the largest private aviation company in the entire world. It was purchased by Berkshire Hathaway, Warren Buffett's company, in 1998. And I was there for 16 years. And I spent the other 24 years, I guess, of my aviation career starting, building, growing, selling various different businesses, but all with the common denominator being within the aviation industry. So I don't know much, but that's what I know. I know a little bit about the aviation stuff, and that's certainly where the drone industry is firmly planted. Although it certainly touches a lot of other industries, which we're going to talk about as well. So just a little bit more about USI, because I want you to understand kind of the perspective that we're bringing to the table here. Is USI is what's considered to be a best practices company. So within the drone aviation space, we exist to define, promote, and support best practices for UAS operations, and that starts with the current and future workforce and goes through UAS operations around the globe. We're a small company. We're Florida headquartered, but our folks are based all over the place. We're a very 21st century company, and there's I think it's on our next slide here. So there's two sides to our business. There's our academic side, which I'm going to get back to, and then there's our commercial side. On the commercial side, even though we're a small company, we are brought in to many Fortune 500 companies that are either standing up or scaling up their drone operations. And so they bring us in primarily because what USI does is we represent, our certification structure represents a best practices standard of operations, standard for pilot training, standard for doing things right. And what our customers have seen, and I can't name names, but we're talking about the largest customers that you can imagine in the United States and beyond, in telecom industry, in the entertainment industry, in the utility sector, energy sector, which is a little bit different. So you name it, and we're working with them. And what they find is that within corporate America, these companies that are standing up the programs, again, these drones compared to the other assets that they're buying, these, multi-$100 or multi-$1,000 drones are not very expensive assets. So it's nothing for them to acquire them. And one day, one of our most recent customers here in the Midwest, they kind of woke up one day and said, "Oh my gosh, we've got 250 pilots operating over 250 drones in the field, and we don't have a standardized program by which that happens." And those are the kind of scenarios that we get brought into. And the exciting thing about that, for purposes of this call, is that what we come into that operation with is the same program that we're putting in schools across Ohio, across the country. And so that's why that connectivity at that certification level, that best practices level, is so important right now. And that's why the academic side of our business, what we do is we have a full, what we refer to as a turnkey curriculum program that we put into schools that starts with the instructor training, getting that instructor up to speed and confident, being able to offer the program there. And then we've got everything that the student needs to do that. The resulting certifications are not only the FAA certification, but the USI certifications, which over here on the right side of my screen are commercially recognized. So I'm going to talk more about that a little bit, but that's why USI has been a very fast growth company. Why we are generally respected out there by the industry, because we've got that recognition both on the academic and the commercial side of the business. Okay, now I'm going to spend an hour and a half talking about every single one of the logos. No, I'm not going to do that. So the purpose of this slide is just very simple. It basically says that within this world that we live in, this unmanned aviation world, there's a lot going on. Oh my gosh, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. It's super exciting. There's a lot going on, and we're not one of those companies that sits by the sideline. In fact, we work with on committees with the FAA on developing the rules and regulations and so on that are governing today's drone operations, and more importantly, tomorrow's drone operations, which I'm going to talk about also in here. But that's where this industry, which is growing what I would refer to as like crazy now, but it is going to go on, in exponential type growth mode as we move into operations known as beyond visual line of sight. So, these are some of our strategic partners. These are companies that we work with. But again, the point of the slide basically says that we are actively engaged in the industry, very involved in the industry, and doing our share, to help it become a very, very, help us extract the benefit and power that comes from drones in the first place. So, okay, so let's now start talking about drones. So I'm going to start with this slide, which says, what is unmanned aviation? Because, oh my gosh, I got to be honest with you, the drone industry is going through what I would call an identity crisis right now. So what is unmanned aviation? Unmanned aviation is the operation of an unmanned aerial system, aka a UAS, for a variety of purposes around the world. So aviation, and I know the education industry, everything is like this, but the aviation industry is just flush with acronyms. So bear with me if I get acronym heavy on you. I'm just going to kind of explain some of the most common ones, because it's important that we do that, or else we're not sure if we're on the same page here. So when you got a definition of unmanned aviation that includes another word or another phrase that also probably isn't recognized, which is unmanned aerial systems, I've got to define that as well. So UAS, the unmanned aerial system, is defined as any aircraft that operates by remote. So there's nobody on board the aircraft, and that operation can be both within the visual line of sight or can be on the visual line of sight. So it's an aircraft operated remotely. So that's why the industry is kind of moving away from unmanned aviation, because unmanned would basically, I think, imply that humans are not involved, and they very much are involved with this. So some of the other terminology that you'll hear from me today, and you'll hear from the industry if you get more involved in it. So drones equals UAS, unmanned aerial systems, equals UAV, unmanned aerial vehicles, equals RPAS, remotely piloted aircraft systems. So again, I apologize on behalf of the entire industry that we're so confusing. But when you see drones, UAS, UAV, RPAS, all of that means exactly the same stuff. So very quickly on the pictures there, when people think of drones, most often maybe the image that comes to mind is the picture in the upper left. It's the person throwing their drone in the air and, hey, I'm going to do my thing. That drone is called a quadcopter. It's very small. But the other pictures, to the right of that is what's referred to as a fixed wing remotely piloted aircraft system. So it looks a lot more like what we might all think about when we think about what does an airplane look like. You're going to get these big wings out there, you got the fuselage, but that aircraft is also remotely piloted. It too is a drone. In the lower left, you've got this octopus looking thing, that's got, this one's, I think, got 6 or 8 copters, blades on it. And this one's doing heavy lift or drone delivery services. And the lower right, I just stuck a picture in here because this is going to become much more significant and relevant in this, not only this discussion, but in the wonderful state of Ohio, because we've made some huge announcements recently in this area. That is what the industry is referring to as an eVTOL, electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft. So that one, I believe, has 8 rotors on it, all powered by battery. The aircraft takes off and lands vertically, and every one of those blades rotates, in flight, so it can reach speeds of a quote unquote aircraft, up to upwards of 200 or so miles an hour. And we're going to talk a lot more about that. All of these things are in this family of autonomous aircraft, their family of drones. So now, the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, who I have a lot of respect for, and I know that they are often, frequently, the butt of jokes, which most often they don't really deserve. But again, they are in the business of creating the regulatory structure that allows for the safe activities related to anything aviation. That's their job. They've got to manage this stuff. So when they look at drones, they look at it very differently than the venture capital community and private equity and all of these other places that are very active in this space right now. They're like, oh my gosh, we got to manage this thing. So what's going on in the world of drones? So what's cool is every 2 years the FAA puts out what they refer to as their aviation forecast, and this is everything aviation. And I can tell you, they do that every 2 years. And 4 years ago, or about, let's just say 7 or 8 years ago, they put out a forecast, and the drone section was 3 pages. The most recent one that was put out in 2023 in the FAA airspace forecast, the drone section, I believe, was 34 pages. It is the largest section of any component of the aerospace industry. And it's so, if you think it's not getting their attention, you're certainly wrong. It certainly is. So this graph here is a really important one for purposes of today's call, because we're talking about workforce development. This graph is the FAA saying, okay, how big is this industry going to get? And where is it right now? So basically in 2024, right in the middle of the graph, it says there is a need for 363,000 commercial drone pilots in the United States right now. That's right now. And this is the need. This isn't how many there are. This is what the need is out there. And they see that growing to over 400,000 in just the next 3 years. So your high school sophomore, junior, seniors, look where they're coming in, to this industry. And this is and they put asterisks, of course, on this, because this talks about based on today's known commercial activities. Well, keep in mind that we are probably 12 to 15 months away from the FAA publishing beyond visual line of sight drone regulations. That is going to be that mushroom cloud, that exponential cloud, or that exponential growth phase that the UAS industry gets into, that is not factored in to this chart that we see right here. So this is why me, as a 62-year-old, 40-year veteran in the industry, is so excited about what is going to happen to the aerospace industry in the next 5 to 10 years. Is going to be an absolute trump card over what I've seen in the last 40 years. And I've seen some really cool stuff in the last 40 years. So let's talk about this as, okay, well, how does this compare? So the graph at the left here is the number of aircraft. So this is what we would all refer to as aircraft, piloted aircraft. Everything, the small Cessna 152 to the enormous Boeing 747 and everything in between here, with the exception of military. But every other manned aircraft, this is the number of aircraft graphed over the last, 20 something years or so. And you'll see that, I know these numbers are small, I apologize, but where the bar ends vertically is between 200,000 and 250,000 pilots, or I'm sorry, not pilots, aircraft. So in this entire almost 25-year period that's represented here, that number has fluctuated within 200,000 to 250,000 aircraft. That's a lot of airplanes. But look at the slide on the right, or the image on the right. The image on the right is the number of registered commercial drones. Now, you can register a drone 2 ways. Every drone, by the way, needs registered today. Whether you're buying one for fun to fly at the beach or in the backyard or whatever, that drone needs registered. There's over 1 million total drones registered in the United States, but operators specifically have to select the commercial box if they are registering their drone as a commercial drone. And there are over 350,000 drones registered in the United States today as commercial drones. So, let's just say 230-ish thousand or 225,000 manned aircraft, 350,000 commercial drones today. And that number is going up significantly on an annual basis. So our drone jobs in demand. And again, I don't want to mislead you. I don't want to uh, I don't want to steer you in the wrong direction at all. The answer is yes, but not every single quote unquote drone job out there is a dedicated drone pilot job. For instance, we work with a very large utility company, here in Ohio that operates, hundreds of drones. Now, that particular operator has chosen to cross train existing personnel to operate drones. So that person is doing this, that, and the other, and operating drones. So, and that's very common out there. So that would be considered a drone job, but it isn't necessarily a dedicated drone job. So what I've got on this page right now came from ZipRecruiter. If you were to go out there right now, you would find the same thing. And what we searched was UAV drone pilot. Again, UAS, drone pilot, RPAS, all of that stuff is out there. Again, go back to the identity crisis. But in this case, this is basically saying that, hey, there's a range from $49,000 to $200,000, which sounds like a lot of money, with an average or median or whatever they call that at a little over $130,000. That is not the quote unquote average drone job. So, but that's what it says. When I got this, I'm like, oh my gosh, because I had an older version of this in an older presentation. I wanted to update this for today. And I kept looking, this is what kept coming up. So this is very real. We know that we've got our students across the country that are getting into the marketplace. Now, a job like this would typically be one that is flying very large aircraft, very complex operations beyond visual line of sight, many times even offshore. But so again, these jobs exist, but I want your takeaway from this slide to be, look, let's look at the left side of this. Let's look at 50,000 to maybe $75,000. Those are very good, very real, and very high quantity of jobs out there in the marketplace, out there on the left-hand side of this as well. And I think what's happening is there's a handful of jobs. You can see that one bar that is maybe skewing this to the right a little bit out there. But again, you look at all the big job recruiting, websites out there, and you type in anything related to drones and UAV, UAS. This is the kind of information you're going to find. So this is where this gets exciting. So here you are. You're a administrator, you're a teacher, you're an instructor, you're a CT director, and you're saying, okay, drones. Why do we want to do this? Why would we want to bring this into our school? Well, I love this. I just absolutely love this because, admittedly, the focus right now is largely on the drone pilot. Is putting a drone in their hands, getting them to learn how to fly, getting them their FAA Part 107 certification, and hey, there's a drone, because that is the way that you introduce students to drones. And by the way, it's fun, it's cool, it's exciting, it's technology. It's heads up, not heads down type stuff. So for all of those reasons, it's incredibly powerful, it's incredibly cool. But if you introduce them to drone technology from the perspective of the pilot, that literally is the tip of the iceberg. And many of those students that see drones in their future, maybe they veer off from being a drone pilot and they go into the engineering and design side, which is huge, because you look at what a drone looks like compared to what a commercial aircraft, that we are all familiar with, looks like. Well, the design and development of what an aircraft looks like today is just so radically different that the whole engineering design side is very attractive, to people, and there is so much more work to be done on that. And then there's the manufacturing side. Somebody's got to build this stuff, and I can tell you across our country right now, there is very much a build in the USA, and to a certain degree, an anti-China scenario specifically relative to drones, because there are some very legitimate reasons for that anti-China sentiment on drones. It's also sad to say that some of the best drones in the marketplace today are coming out of China, but they're under that umbrella. The good news for us, is that more and more manufacturing jobs for drones are showing up in the United States today. Well, when you look at drones, they are highly automated. Well, what is it that's automating that? Well, it's the software, it's the controllers, it's everything that has to do with, with what they refer to as flight management systems. So there's the software development side. But at the end of the day, what is a drone doing? I'd like to tell you the drones are just aircraft, they fly and they're fun, and oh, this is really neat, but they have a purpose. And almost every drone you're going to see has some sort of component attached to it, some sort of system attached to it, camera of some sort, that is basically acquiring data as that drone is being flown. So you've got this entire data side of the drone industry, data scientists, data analysts, and that's really what the purpose of a drone is. So my point of this slide is you introduce the student first person perspective as a drone pilot. That in and of itself is exciting, but if and when they break off into one of these other areas, that's all great, it's all needed, and it's all, incredible job opportunities out there. So this slide kind of is a little bit different perspective of the same message. So again, you bring drones in the classroom. Well, what is that? Well, you're bringing into the classroom the aerospace industry. And as I mentioned a few minutes ago, what's happening in the aerospace industry over the next 10 years, the electrification of aircraft, and not just drones. Folks, in 10 years, probably everybody on this call is going to have at least the option to fly on an electric powered, aircraft. And whether that's battery or hydrogen, fuel cell, or some other, thing, that they're flying, they're out there. This isn't drawing board stuff. It's very, very real. So you're introducing your students to the very, very dynamic world of the aerospace industry, which again, introduction as a drone, but they go elsewhere within aerospace. That's awesome. There's nothing wrong with that. But then also, what is drone? Well, drone is a part of the autonomous industry. And the autonomous industry is certainly not limited to drones or aircraft. You've got submersible drones. You've got land drones, the vehicles, the trucks and cars as drones. You've got the ships and boats that are all part of the autonomous industry is growing like crazy right now. And the commonality between, drones as autonomous technology and all of these other things as autonomous technology, 70 to 80% of what they're learning from a drone is applicable no matter where they go with their autonomous technology interest. So keep that in mind as well. And then largely all of these things we're talking about, excuse me, are part of this larger industry known as robotics. So one of the things is I'm out talking to schools on a regular basis. I'm talking to students. They ask a great question. How do I convey this message to the students? And how do I convey this message to the parents? Well, I would encourage you to do it this way. And what we just talked about these last couple of slides, what a wonderful, wonderful mind opening opportunity that you're giving these kids, but you're starting them with something very cool, a very shiny object, and something that in and of itself is going to be a wonderful career opportunity. And that's with drones. So that's why I love, drones in the classroom. So switching gears a little bit, talking about drones in the industry, 10:28. Just doing a quick time check. I'm known to go long. Apologize. So are drones being actively used in the industry? And I just have to tell you with a resounding absolutely. I mean, oh my gosh, every day I receive probably 10 digital newsletters a day that are relevant to drones. And some of them are from what I would call the drone industry, but many of them are from the utility industry, the water industry, the transportation industry, all these different industries that are using drones. And there's now so much activity going on that every day they're or at least once a week, they're putting out information about, hey, here's what's going on with drones in our industry cluster. So I know the purpose of today's call is not to talk about drones. By and large, it's more specifically, I believe, arts and communications is what we're talking about today. So we're gonna focus more about that on this slide here. So these are links, and I know if you haven't already, you've got access to the presentation. So please remember that. So if you get this, all of these on here are links to various different articles and stuff out on the web that talk about the stuff. But arts and communications and drones. So we're talking about events, whether events are big games, whether events are concerts, things like that, news, films, shows, using drones in the photography, videography world, traffic reporting, first responders. One of the biggest things that I'm seeing popping up on my newsletters a lot is that, especially in the largest urban cities across our country, San Francisco, New York, Los Angeles, places like that, where it is very, it is very difficult for first responders to get on scene to whatever it is they're going on scene to because of traffic. So every one of these big cities has implemented drones as first responders. Well, what are they doing? Whether they can launch a drone literally in 30 seconds from the time they get notification of something. Things can fly up at 30, 40 miles an hour. So wherever they're going, they can get to very quickly. They're flying line of sight and they're not having to take the roads. And what are they doing? Well, they're showing up and they're putting camera. So they're giving eyeballs so that as the actual human beings respond, whether it's fire, police, whatever it is, they know what they're getting into. So we're seeing, drones as first responders, which again is part of the larger communication systems out there, as being absolutely a huge, fast-growing segment of the industry. The other thing, again, on the communication side, well, all of this internet, all of this telephone, all of this cable that we've got, all of that stuff is laying or residing within a very, very sophisticated, infrastructure system, towers, poles, and more of that is going in on a daily basis. And again, let's go back to the utility sector. So the utilities, how do they use drones? Well, what they've been doing for decades is when they do an inspection of a tower, they drive the truck, they park the truck, they pull off the ladder, they climb the ladder, they're taking pictures, they've got wrenches, they're doing this, that, and the other, and they're doing their inspections. Well, if you can launch a drone with a camera with incredible resolution, and you can go out there and you can circle these towers, these poles, and you can bring back that data, and that data can be analyzed both by a computer and by a human being that says, hey, here's what we're seeing. And then you send out, somebody to go, instead of shotgun, you're now with a rifle. You're saying, okay, go out to that specific tower, and that specific, rusty bolt needs to be replaced, whatever it is. But imagine the time savings of what I just described for the telecom industry, because it's a requirement that they inspect this stuff, because it just can't go down because of neglect. So there's one very specific example of that. Another one would be like in coming after major weather disasters. Boom, they take everything down. A lot of that infrastructure gets ruined in there. So what you do is, like the AT&Ts of the world, the Verizons of the world, they actually have drones that are internet services. And so what they do is they launch what's called a tethered drone. So boom, they launch this drone up 300-400 feet. It is basically providing internet to a certain square mileage area for the first responders, for the insurance companies, for people going in right after that to be able to do that kind of stuff. The casinos out in Las Vegas, the fountains, if you've been out there, you've seen that, you've seen the fireworks, you've seen this, that, and the other. Well, I can tell you that we're working with some of these, some of the largest casino companies in the world are looking at putting together these drone shows. Just this past year over Ohio Stadium, I forget which game it was. They put on a drone show. So that's part of the arts and communication industry. Within arts and communications, there's just a tremendous amount going on. And again, it could be the wedding photographer and videographer. So there's entry level stuff, and there's very, very sophisticated stuff going on in there right now. Now I'm going to switch gears and talk a little bit more about, okay, well, if we're going to do this, if we're going to bring drone programs in, if we're going to truly try and make these students, industry ready, what does that mean? How do we do it? What does this look like? So within the United States, the FAA is the governing authority from every aviation standpoint, and they have a commercial certification for becoming a commercial drone pilot. It's called the Part 107. And that's the only certification offered or required by the FAA as we sit here and discuss and talk about it right now. It's going to change, but for right now, in the foreseeable future, that's all that is. Well, the Part 107 is a knowledge-based test. There is no requirement to be able to demonstrate that you actually know how to fly a drone. So you can imagine that the FAA's job, which by the way, they're doing their job. Their job is to create minimum requirements for regulations. That's what every FAA regulation is. It's the minimum requirement. The company I came from NetJets, if we did everything at the minimum requirement, that company wouldn't exist today. So what we do is we create a best practices standard, and we operate routinely at that best practices standard, and we are constantly trying to evolve that standard. That's what industry does. So when you look at industry requirements, yes, you need the 107, but that's just the ticket price to get in. They also want hands-on flight training. They want safety best practices. They want their pilots to have familiarity with all kinds of different drone platforms out there. They want both visual and beyond visual line of sight experience, and they want to know that you can operate in a complex environment, where you've got infrastructure around it. You're in airspace that might have helicopters or airplanes. You're flying over public. You're flying over highways. You're doing those kind of things. Those are complex operations. And if you're going to hire a drone pilot, and you're going to pay them $75,000 a year. That's what you're looking for, which goes significantly beyond. The reason I say this is that there are a ton of Part 107 training companies out there, but please don't be fooled that is industry ready. It has nothing to do with being industry ready. It has only something to do with being able to pass the test to get your 107 certification. So USI's approach towards doing this, 1037. Okay, I'm going to go to 1045 and take questions. So I'm going to move a little bit more quickly here, but we break our certification program down into what we call primary and advanced operations, and they are what they are. Primary is what you would think it would be. It's small aircraft flying visual line of sight, and conducted within the parameters of what is Part 107 regulation. So it's very consistent with what the regulations require right now, and it's probably 75 to 80% of all the drone flight activity occurring right now is occurring in this primary operations sector. So you want to make sure that your students are workforce ready for primary operations, because that's where the industry is right now. Advanced operations are also being conducted. These are much larger aircraft beyond visual line of sight. They do that through what's called an FAA waiver. So the FAA, so a company applies for a waiver, the FAA reviews it, they ultimately approve it, and that company can now operate that aircraft in that beyond visual line of sight operation specifically. Not you can't do whatever they want to do, but very specifically. But these are now what's considered complex operations. Our certification structure, which again the industry recognizes, the state of Ohio recognizes, and I'll get into that in just a second, but it evolves like this. I'm going to focus here on the primary certification, which is the left side of my screen. The very top is the educator badge. So as an instructor, as a teacher, as an educator, you could receive 2 badges from USI, and you can teach the knowledge-based portion of our program, because we have, there's a flight base, there's a knowledge base, and the knowledge base is incredibly important. So an educator can become knowledge based. The next badge, the 3 badges, which equal a crew member badge, is basically the knowledge based stuff plus what we call ground school. So it's understanding how to actually operate an aircraft, but not the operational side. That's the operator badge, which is the next one. So the operator badge combines the knowledge component and the entire flight component, which now says, okay, I can operate as a operator, I can operate the aircraft because I've got my knowledge, I've got my flight, I can do that. And then the badge at the bottom is the badge that we want to encourage the Ohio teachers and instructors to get, is what is referred to as the instructor badge. They can do everything. They can teach the knowledge side, they can instruct the flight side. So our advanced program works exactly the same way. It's obviously just different material leaning towards complex operations. So this next slide, again, staying on the primary side, again, knowledge, ground school. So those are those three badges over there. So you're not flying yet. And every person interested, every instructor, every student interested in drones doesn't necessarily have to take a flight pathway. They can take their knowledge and they can go into flight, VSO flight, visual line of sight operations flight, or they can take that into a technician. So I want to stress here that, and I haven't talked a lot about this, but the repair, the maintenance, the servicing of these aircraft, the more there are, the more they break, the more they just need inspections, the more they need just routine maintenance. So the maintenance side of the drone industry is growing at crazy, as well as the flight side of this program. So you have this opportunity to get to take your students through a flight path or through a maintenance pathway as well. So within the great state of Ohio, we've got some really good stuff going on. Of the 4 badges that we've got in our primary program, the state Ohio Department of Education recognizes 3 of those badges for 6 points each. And the one that they don't recognize is actually our Part 107 prep, because they do recognize the Part 107 certification. So in summary, and the FAA does not offer coursework that leads to the 107 test. So if you use the the USI coursework as preparation for the 107, then I guess my theory there is that all 4 certifications ultimately lead to certifications at 6 points each, so total of 24 points. And you don't, I know you don't need that many, but and the cool thing is you can get those 24 in multiple different ways. You don't have to go linear, 1 through 4 to get that. We also have recognition by Ohio Tech Credit on the workforce development side. Again, the same certifications on the primary side. I'm going to go through this because I'm going to get back to that in just a second. And the USI Safety Level 1 certification, I'm probably going to say this wrong, so bear with me, but we're an ITAG, an industry recognized credential transfer assurance guide. Now you know why they've turned that into an acronym. It's an ITAG. So it is recognized as 3 college credit hours, and that's tied to just the one certification, the USI Safety Level 1. I'm going to move a little faster. Our program, again, when you look at professional certification, you want to tie professional certification towards entities that recognize that. That's really what workforce development is when you're talking about certifications. Is, well, at the end of the day, who recognizes this stuff? Well, our certification structure is recognized ultimately through the earning of certifications by the FAA, by a group called the NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, and they're very, very active. NIST is in all things, I would say, public safety. NIST is very well known. ASTM, we self-certify ours to ASTM, and we expect, knock on wood, we expect actual ASTM recognized certification of our certs in the very near future. And USI is also was referred to as the safety partner to USAIG, which is the largest aviation insurance underwriter in the world. USAIG, it also is a Berkshire Hathaway, Warren Buffett company, and we are their safety partner, and so they recognize the USI certifications. Okay, the great state of Ohio. Again, I got to give credit where credit is due, and Jobs Ohio, Fly Ohio, Ohio DOE, TechRed, uh, every one of these groups is working very, very hard at making, helping make Ohio the epicenter of this next wave, this next evolution of aerospace technology, and that is advanced air mobility. It's drones, it's electric vertical takeoff and landing. And so you may have seen it, was just a few months ago, I think September or October, we announced that Dayton International Airport is going to be the manufacturing location, manufacturing facility for what's referred to as the Joby aircraft. Joby is the best funded, and I'm talking billions of dollars of funding of the aircraft. You'll see the picture here. It is electrically driven propellers taking off and landing vertically, and those propellers shift in flight. They're known as a hybrid, so they shift and they move into more aircraft mode. And this aircraft is, again, capable of, I believe it's like 170, 180 knots. So now you're taking off and landing from like a helicopter, and then you're transitioning into flight. This is where ultimately, and I'm talking 7, 10 years from now, you're going to be able to open your Uber app and say, do I want a car or do I want an eVTOL? And again, Uber is one of the major investors behind Joby. So these things are going to come to life first piloted, but you got to trust me on this. None of their business plans, none of their business models make sense until the pilot seat is removed from the aircraft. So ultimately, this will become an autonomous aircraft for cargo, for passenger, for you name it. And the largest company in the space right now, Joby, has committed to building the aircraft in Dayton, Ohio. We also have in the Dayton area, actually in Springfield, and this all happened right about the same time, the announcement of the National Advanced Air Mobility Center of Excellence, and which also is known as the UAS Test Center. Those two things are located at Springfield Airport. I'm talking about a multi-million-dollar building that is designed to house companies. It says, hey, companies, bring your business to Ohio. Hire Ohioans to help build your business. You know why? Because we get it. We understand. We're building a workforce for this. And I'm so proud of my state for what's going on here. And that's why we're seeing our program grow like crazy in Ohio. And Ohio is putting its money where its mouth is. Our program is a complete turnkey program. Everything that the instructor needs, the students need, the LMS, the safety gear, the workbooks, textbooks. It can be completely virtual, can be completely in the classroom, and of course, the in between there as well. I know one of the requirements we had was to talk about accessibility. I'm not going to say we're the most accessible type of program, in the whole CTE world. We're not, but aviation isn't. Aviation requires verbal communications, requires the English language, does require sight. But there are certainly some things that can happen. But here's what I can tell you from an accessibility standpoint. Probably the biggest issue from an accessibility standpoint is cost. When I learned to fly, back in the Orville and Wilbur days, in the 1980s, it was incredibly expensive had I taken a complete pathway through becoming a commercial pilot. Today, that's $250,000 pathway for a student to become a commercial pilot at a school like Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, or even at Ohio State. It's significantly expensive. But when you're talking drones, you're now talking hundreds of dollars of aircraft. You're talking access to becoming a commercial pilot within the drone space, at a ridiculously small fraction of the cost of what manned aviation is like. So that would be an area where I would say, hey, accessibility for drones, financial box, well, you can certainly check that. So very quickly, so we are offering a program beginning January 22nd to teachers and instructors in Ohio. Begins January 22nd. It's going to be self-paced work, but assisted by USI instructors, getting through our coursework, achieving your Part 107, achieving the USI certifications, basically going through the program that your students would be going through. We're just doing this for the state of Ohio, and it's going to culminate in June at the Ohio State University in 3 days of on-site flight training and your flight, sign off evaluation. And there's going to be some really cool stuff occurring while you're on site at Ohio State, seeing what's going on at Ohio State with their UAS program, their engineering program, all that kind of cool stuff. So on this next page, there's a little bit more information on this. The great news is the cost of this program at $3,950, $3,950 can be 100% paid for by Tech Cred. If you've got your phone out, you can scan that right now. But again, everybody's going to have access to this presentation, and I just really encourage you, because the first thing you've got to do if you're going to bring a drone program into your school is you've got to get your instructor, up to speed on that program. So more about that. I'm going to blow through this a little bit because I am running behind. So remote pilot, STEM education training certification pathway. Look, here we are at the top. Look at the top of this little chart. So there's a high school. Where can you go with this? Well, let's go to the right first. From a high school program like the USI program, you can go boom right into the industry. And we've got students doing that on a daily basis. You can go right into employment. You can go into a 2-year technical college. And what would you do there? You would likely go into a program like our advanced program, bigger drones, more complex operations, a little bit more, knowledge and education, type stuff going on. Or you can go into a 4-year program. And now you're probably doing that because you're going to be getting, you're probably not going to end up as a quote unquote drone pilot if you're going to take this into a 4-year, but you're going off into one of those other sectors through engineering, through arts and communications, through the so many different options once you get into the 4-year side of this that you can take this career. But the key is you started them because you got that, you lit the fire, you gave them that spark by a first person perspective opportunity to see drones, but and using their own hands and brains to do that, and then getting excited about, oh my gosh, look what this technology really is. So let me stop there, and open it up to questions, please. If anybody's got one, remember to take yourself off mute, or feel free to throw it in your chat. Let me go out of this.
Scott, this is Pam.
Yes.
Quick question. You may have mentioned it, but how are teachers getting information about this course?
That one that you're talking about, the one that I referred to at the end of my presentation there.
Yes.
So we did, unfortunately, the timing was terrible, but we did a large scale email campaign to our entire Ohio academic database, which is thousands and thousands. So whether they got it, I know their school got it because we selected every single high school and CTE program in the state of Ohio, and the administrators, the CTE directors. We may not have gotten down to some of the instructor levels, so that's a great question. But so every single school did it. We're going to do that 2 or 3 more times. But also within this presentation that I made today, in fact, it's the page that I've got right now. They can scan that, and more information would be available to them from that, or the link that's provided, in the presentation.
Perfect. Thank you so much for the information. Thank you for the presentation. Very informative.
Well, you're very welcome. And let me just ask one more time if anybody's got any questions.
And just
Okay,
a
well,
reminder, all this will be posted on the website, that Google website. And then that was Pam speaking from Tech Prep. So I know we'll be sharing the word out too, to try and get down to the instructor level. And Scott, it is a great presentation. And it's exciting. You're right. And being in the Dayton area, we're pretty excited about it too. So thank you.
Well, you're very, very welcome. And again, my parting comment for you is this. Again, and I know I'm an old geezer that loves aviation, so I'm biased. I'll tell you that right now. But for our kids, and I've got them. My kids are older, now. But but I'm not going to tell you that I understand your challenges, because I don't, and I give you so much credit for what you're doing. But if you're looking for something that is fun, is exciting, is going to absolutely explode from a workforce standpoint, I just encourage you, take a hard look at this, because the aerospace industry is going to go through a complete evolution over the next 10 years. And I just can't think of a more exciting and fun way to introduce students, to all the wonderful opportunities be above and beyond, becoming a drone pilot, even though that's pretty cool in and of itself. But my contact information is on the presentation as well. I would love to hear from you. Telephone, email, I don't care. Reach out to me. I'm Central Ohio. I love getting in my car and come seeing you. So,
We had a quick question. What classroom space and resources? Because I know we talked about, can you use this on a Chromebook? What stuff do you have to buy for your classroom?
well, the knowledge component doesn't require much. Access to the internet. And again, if your students learn better through textbooks and workbooks, with digital or hard copy, we've got both. So that kind of stuff. But ultimately, if you're going to do the full program, which I would love to see you do, we're gonna recommend simulation. So there's that simulation software that would need to be downloaded, on the computer. So that might be a challenge for the Chromebook. It does require a controller unit, which is not a big deal. And then ultimately, there's the requirement, if you're going to go flying drones, it's acquiring drones. And then you would need, and there are some drones meant to be flown inside, which is great, because you don't need, to file flight plans. You don't need any of the airspace approvals, any of that kind of stuff. But if you go outside, you're going to need to get what's called a Lance approval, basically a flight plan. Our program provides the software that you would need to manage your entire drone operation, including getting your flight, your Lance approvals and all that kind of stuff. And look at us as a consultant, because what kind of drones are we buying? What are we flying? That's what we're here for. We can help you with every single question that you would have, and those are good questions, and they will absolutely, be something you got to go through to put your program in place.
Thank you. Okay, so to ensure we get on to the next one, this recording, I'm going to stop right now.